Himalayan climbing, it's steeped in history. Whatever mountain piques your interest, there's decades of stories and attempts and successes and failures just waiting to draw you in. When you're starting to climb other stories that you read, you get sucked into these books and they inspire you, and they start to feed that obsession that just grows in the back of most climbers' minds. That idea, just knowing that mountain is out there, it sits in the back of your head and it eats away at your consciousness. For me, it was Changabang. I'm Daniel Joll, an alpinist and mentor with the New Zealand Alpine Team. And ever since I first read The Shining Mountain, and that's going back quite a few years ago now, I've dreamed of climbing Changabang.
Well, Changabang, it's a mountain of just under 7,000 metres, in fact, so it's a very respectable height, but it's not one of the 8,000 metre giants. But it is, I think, it's one of the most beautiful mountains in the world. And it's also a mountain that is not easy to reach. It's a very elusive mountain. We went to Changabang in 1974, and our team numbered just 8 climbers. Once we reached the mountain, we could see that west face and the most dramatic way of climbing it, the direct line up that ridge, is so magnificent that one wanted to do it. When we looked up at it, when we actually got there, being a joint expedition, we realised that it was much too steep and too difficult for the team we had, and that was why we went round.
We had set our sights on the infamous West Wall of Changabang, propelled into fame by the book The Shining Mountain, which detailed Pete Boardman and Joe Tasker's 25-day first ascent of the West Wall.
The idea of Changabang, the seed was sown when he and Dick Renshaw came back from Dunagiri, and Joe saw that as a mountain. What he saw about it, we'll never know, but there was something about it that he felt he needed to set up this audacious expedition with just 2 of them to go there. So coming back after the Dunagiri trip, Joe was looking around for a partner to go on this particular expedition. He had heard of Pete in the climbing world, and obviously Pete had done Everest previously. And I think he wanted to go and talk to him and approach him to see if he would be up for such a challenge.
Pete and Joe, very different in personalities, no doubt about that. Pete, more philosophical perhaps, and Joe, very driving. Their differences in personality actually compensated and almost strengthened that partnership. It actually worked really well. They were a magnificent pair.
Pete and Joe's ascent was one of the pivotal moments that sparked lightweight, small teams going to more difficult mountains.
It was an incredibly challenging climb, and they were once again, they were taking the next step forward in the development of Himalayan climbing when they did it.
Pete Boardman and Joe Tasker had climbed this route in 1976. 46 years later, still unrepeated. That's despite numerous attempts from very competent alpinists from all over the world. What was so difficult? Perhaps Pete and Joe were just tougher and could endure more suffering than anyone else. I remember thinking to myself, if we're going to have any chance of succeeding on the West Wall of Changabang, it needs to be with a rock-solid team. Fortunately, finding the right team would not be a problem. Both Kim and Matt are from Australia, and considering there's almost no real mountains in Australia, it's quite amazing that They're incredibly accomplished alpinists. Kim is from Tasmania and he's been climbing all over the world since a teenager, really. You almost can name it and he's gone there on a climbing expedition. I first met Matt in Patagonia, actually. Very fit, very strong, very dependable climbing partner.
I met Matt and Dan at the 14,000 foot camp on Denali, which is a pretty cold, miserable place. We heard some Kiwi voices kind of across the glacier. One of the Kiwis approached us and said, "Dirty Aussies," to us. And after that, it sort of started a relationship between, Matt, Dan and myself of climbing, and we've climbed all over the world together.
We've worked as a team on numerous expeditions from the Himalayas to Alaska, North Faces in the Alps, the Andes, Patagonia.
Morning, Dan.
Challenging climbs that are building you step by step towards a mountain like this.
It was 2019 that Dan suggested that we go to Changabang. The IMF had reported that there had been 20 attempts to repeat the face. We didn't know of all of them, and some maybe hadn't even gotten to advanced base camp, but among them there were some quite good climbers. And somehow things just hadn't worked out for them, and we didn't really think it was because of the climbing being too difficult. Like, these were good climbers, but there was something about the logistics, something about actually getting on this mountain and just getting it done that was really quite hard.
We decided that therefore we had to have a rock solid plan. As we're all living in different countries, we'd call or email each other every couple of weeks.
We'd just end up talking about different ideas for climbing the route and how we might make it work. And, we'd find a little piece of information, we'd read a report here and someone would say they had their gear eaten by foxes, and we'd think, oh, we better take barrels. And then, other people would struggle with snow conditions here, or they found they couldn't camp on the mountain. So you think, oh, well, maybe we need a portaledge.
After several years of planning and delays due to the COVID pandemic, in April 2022, we were in India and getting ready to climb.
In the Himalaya, what I would like to do is climb another mountain that's nearby. It's a bit lower, that's easy, and climatize on that, and then come down, and then do something else and come down, and then climb the route. But there was no easy objectives to do that on, and just because of the time involved with getting to the mountain and all those things, it just wasn't going to work. So we just kind of knew we'd had to strap onto the mountain and start, and we would just ascend whatever we did, 150, 200, 300 meters a day, move up and just deal with the acclimatization as we ascended.
To prepare for this, we had climbed in the Alps for 6 weeks prior to leaving for India, and that allowed us to acclimatize to the height of Mont Blanc.
When we originally looked at the mountain, Matt had suggested just starting right at the base of the mountain, which looked like more difficult ground, but at least it would be easier hauling the bags, because obviously travel along a ridge with really quite a lot of equipment, you have to sort of ferry it back and forwards, whereas if you can just go straight up, you can hold the bags. But looking at it, it was a bit hard to tell how hard it was really going to be, but Matt was quite adamant, and so we decided to go for it.
With our strategy sorted, we began climbing the West Wall, and our line of ascent, it weaved on and off the Boardman-Tasker route. But as we progressed up through the mountain, we could see the presence of their ascent. Old pitons, fixed rope, and you could feel part of that climbing history as you weaved your way up the mountain.
Basically what would happen each day is one of us would climb, lead up the pitch with the ropes and climb up, and then they'd make an anchor, and then the others would ascend the rope, and we'd have to haul up our bags behind us. We probably had, 80 kilos of stuff that we were taking with us at the start, because we were planning on having 10 days on the wall and these 2 portaledges. So we dragged that along, and because it's not like a nice clean sheet of granite that the bag just slides up, there's all bits, the mountain's got jagged things sticking out of it, so the bag will just catch on the smallest little edge, and then you won't be able to move it. So someone has to ascend next to it and pull the bag out.
Sunset from the portaledge, just under 6,200 metres on Changabang.
Hello.
And there's Kim, somewhere. Where is he?
Poking his head out.
Next day, we climbed through this section called the barrier, which is kind of meant to be the crux of the whole mountain. And, you know, for us, it was really represented like, if we can get through there, like no one had actually gotten through the barrier since, like, of all the attempts.
Before departing, I think the week before departing, I had spoken with both the Kiwi teams who had been to Changabang prior to us. And in those chats, I had the impression that if we could get past the barrier roof, then the rest of the mountain, that'd be easy.
There's Matty passing through the famous barrier roof on the west face of Changabang. Kim's just led through it and now we're jagging up.
We were in for a hell of a shock, because with that expectation in our mind, after we passed the barrier, it was actually bloody hard. And the hardest climbing of the route was a long way past the barrier.
Just starting to snow for the afternoon. Here's Kim aiding up. I just headed towards the ice fields up above him, 1 ridge above us. Through the barrier. Still pretty steep. Pretty nasty little snowstorm. Now we've got to a safe spot where we can put up the portal edges. It's desperate. Oh. Up on the ice fields, west face of Changabang. It's just fucking brutal.
Last time.
We all agree our last Himalayan cold climbing ever. So much misery.
I stay out till I go again.
Any weather at those altitudes, particularly with the wind, it's really more than a chilling experience, because you wonder every moment, is this the moment we're going to have to descend? You just have to trust your team and hope that the next morning will dawn clear again.
During that night hanging at the bottom of the ice field, we were just hit by constant avalanches coming down the mountain. And you're in a serious situation where, you know, you're just there. You can't leave. There's nothing much you can do. You just got to deal with it. And during that, Kim's portal edge broke. The side of his frame just snapped under the pressure of him and the avalanches hitting it. And there's really nothing we could do. We're just like, mate, you got to deal with that, because we're in our portal edge. We're stuck in here anyway. And it's not a pleasant situation. You're like, far out, we're in the shit. With the loss of that portal edge, we're now down to 1.
But that left us a problem. It's like, how are we going to stop tonight? You know, like, what are we going to do? And so we were like, well, we have to get to a spot that we can put a tent up for this to work.
And in the middle of the ascent, that really puts it at risk. We might not be able to get a decent night's sleep again for the rest of the trip. And without a good place to sleep, to camp, it's really hard to keep the energy up, to keep the body warm, and to really just continue with that suffering and keep pushing yourself up the wall.
So life on a big wall is kind of uncomfortable, and life on an alpine big wall even more so.
It's as if you have to force yourself to work in slow motion, and every single item has to be placed very carefully where it won't fall, attached to a rope. And because you're slightly hypoxic at elevation, it isn't easy. You're living in a dream world.
It was just the existence that was hard. It was just the grinding of just being up there, and like, you know, and in some ways that brought us to the same sort of experience that Pete and Joe had, because, you know, when you read the book, they kind of going through all the same things, just the suffering with being on that wall for so long. You know, just hasn't changed over the years. Just living in minus 30 degrees hasn't become more fun.
We're up just above 6,500 and we are struggling. It's crazy, we've been in a snowstorm the past 4 hours. The sun has come out. Same.
We'd made the decision to bivvy rather than pushing on to the summit. And in hindsight, that was an excellent call. It was 2 exhausting hours to cut out a tent platform. But the summit was still a long way away.
6,650 metres last bivvy, hopefully, on Changabang, at least on the way up. Maybe a few more on the way down.
Yeah, there'll be a few on the way down. And Changabang never lets things go easy.
Summit day morning. It's been a pretty disastrous night with our tent sliding off the platform we made for it. Luckily we didn't fall off the side of the mountain, but been brewing up for 2 hours, getting hydrated. Breakfast time now. And then we're off to try and get to the summit. Hopefully not too windy. So we got wind and snow.
In the bitter cold of the morning, we battled our way up the last few technical pitches of the route, hoping to arrive to an easy snow ramp leading us to the summit.
The book had described it, like there was a little bit more climbing, and then they just walked to the top up snow. So we were just kind of sort of thinking, we were going to just, eventually it was just going to get easier. Just take the ropes off and walk to the top.
Here's Kim. He's in the pain cave. 100 metres to go to the summit.
We came to this, what was meant to be the sort of final snow slopes that we were hoping to walk up, and it was no snow, just bullet ice, this ice that's sort of it's like concrete. 1,500 metres of climbing granite. Our crampons were just completely blunt. The points were bent, and it was there was no way we could get them in, so you'd take 2 steps up the ice and then one blow out.
Even 100 metres from the top, I was looking around and there's storm clouds on the horizon. And I still didn't believe we were going to get there. And 50 metres from the top, you're really okay, it's happening. We're going to summit.
Well done, it's been a big fucking effort. No doubt. We're on the summit of Changabang.
Oh my God. Amazing. I'm exhausted. I'm crying. Can't see it because I'm wearing glasses.
Yeah, I think it's better that we all keep them on.
We're all more manly.
Just look haggard.
For the last 7 days, we never looked ahead to anything past the next morning. Just climb, haul, melt snow, get up, repeat. Never thinking ahead to the second or the third day in front, just deal with today, get up, deal with tomorrow. Despite all the suffering, the extreme cold, the exhaustion, the altitude, the risk, pushing yourself through at those extreme limits with your mates right there beside you, it's an experience you can never forget.
There's something amazing about moving on a big mountain and just the connection with your mates. As if you can get it right, it's an incredible feeling.
There's just nothing like that. And it's incredibly hard to replicate anywhere else in your life.